This is one of the latest additions to the compact and travel espresso maker market. The Maespresso 58 by Maestri House is an interesting little machine with some really cool built-in features. However, it's not without its quirks and frustrations. I hope you're doing awesome, and thank you so much for coming back to join me for another video. Maestri House was kind enough to send me the Maespresso 58 for free to review and to share my feedback with them about the product. But like all of my other product reviews here on the channel, they're not paying me any money to do this review or for any of my thoughts, and they don't get to see this video before you do. Overall, the build quality is really nice. The fit and finish is really nice. This thing is basically 100% metal, which is really nice. It's got some weight to it. It's pretty solid, so it's a pretty stout little piece of equipment. The one-piece bent metal stand here, I did sort of feel like I might have a little bit of a concern with it being a little too flimsy, but I really haven't had much of a concern with it. It is a little bit flimsy and you can sort of see some flex in it, but it's really not bad, and that's not something you would be doing anyways with this. I think it would have been nice to see some like little extra gusseting in the corners or something like that, just to keep it a little more rigid. The group head here is a really nice solid piece of billet aluminum that's machined very nicely, it's finished very nicely, and it's got a built-in pressure gauge, which is really cool. There are two ways that you can pressurize the group head on this to be able to pull a shot. And that is with a food grade CO2 cartridge like this that you can get off of Amazon or from like a local restaurant supply shop, or the optional battery powered rechargeable air pump that you can get directly from Maestri House when you order the Maespresso 58. This is the regulator assembly that allows you to use either CO2 or the optional battery powered air pump. And then this is just a quick disconnect fitting that snaps onto the back of the fitting into the group head. On this side, you've got your own little regulator assembly with an adjustable knob and a gauge for the CO2, or you can run the battery powered air pump into this fitting here. And you can kind of do some interesting things with this once you get it set up and you start playing with it that does give it a unique leg up on some other compact and portable espresso makers. You do want to be as quick as possible, obviously, when you're threading on the CO2 cartridge, so you don't lose a ton of pressure out of that. After plugging this in, I have over 1,000 PSI in here right now to be able to use, and then you just turn this little knob on the CO2 regulator to start introducing air pressure into the group head. If you unscrew the main pressure inlet fitting out of the back of the group head, you'll notice there's an O-ring on here, and this does come with a little baggie of additional O-rings for doing, service and maintenance on some of the O-rings in here as needed. And it also comes with a bunch of these little extra paper filters that you can put inside the fitting here to filter the incoming pressurized air. You also have this little button here, which is a pressure relief valve. So as you're getting close to the end of your shot and you want to be done, you can just instantaneously press this, and that'll just dump all the air out, sort of acting like a three-way valve in an automatic espresso machine. I don't know exactly how many shots you can get out of a CO2 cartridge. I was able to get quite a few out of one before it was, no longer usable and ran out of pressure, but it is something you would have to buy, basically over and over again if you wanted to use the CO2 versus a one-time charge of buying the portable air pump. The only drawback I have found to the air pump is that it's extremely loud. That's pretty obnoxiously loud, especially if you're like making coffee in the morning or something like that in your household or camping. It is nice that you can change how much pressure you want before you start using it. So you can set it to 9 bar, you can set it to 6 bar, you can set it to 3 bar, you can, do all kinds of different things with it, which is really cool, but it is very loud versus the CO2 cartridges being silent essentially, which is really neat and kind of a weird experience when pulling a shot of espresso. It's pretty cool, but again, this is a reoccurring charge of something you would have to buy versus the one-time charge of this. I'm gonna skip over the Portafilter for a second as we work our way down because I have a lot of thoughts about this Portafilter and I wanna go into detail on those. But at the bottom, you've got a drip mat here or a drip tray that they've included that's like a silicone rubber, and it's got a notch cut out of the bottom of it that matches the notch on the bottom of the stand. So it fits in here really nicely and locks in and it doesn't move or go anywhere. There is enough room under the group head here to fit a thinner espresso scale and a kind of a standard style shot glass. You're pretty close with kind of the standard style Gibraltar, shot glass. But with something like a not neutral shot glass or even something like this Avensi wave glass, it fits under here pretty easily. It includes this really nice all metal tamp that fits perfectly inside the Portafilter. This was kind of a nice surprise. Usually when you have tamps included with espresso machines, they're usually plastic or they're just not all that great. And this is like actually a solid, heavy duty, solid, metal tamp that's nicely made, that fits really nicely and nice and tight inside the Portafilter. So I was really pleased to see a tamp like this included with this kit. So let's talk about this portafilter. Inside the portafilter, you've got a shower screen that's attached to this silicone thermal insulator here for your water. So basically this is just like a, shower screen or puck screen with holes in it with this metal stud off of it that goes inside of the hole here in this silicone little cup. This is basically like your water chamber, but also a silicone thermal insulator to keep your water from making direct contact with the wall of the portafilter. The idea behind that obviously is to keep the water from being in direct contact with a metal object that would start to draw heat out of your water, because obviously maintaining good water temperature or consistent water temperature while you're brewing coffee is important. A lot of these style of espresso makers don't have heating elements, which is unfortunate because thermal efficiency or consistency in your temperature is really important when it comes to brewing coffee. I do like to take the lid off my kettle, and as it's heating up to boiling point, I'll place this over the top of it and kind of rest it the best I can on a stable position to heat up the portafilter while I'm heating up my water. Just be careful that you don't knock your kettle over or your portafilter doesn't fall in and splash out and potentially burn you or cause a mess. So definitely at your own risk when it comes to that. Overall, the portafilter is really nice. It's solid metal and it's nicely made. I like the design of the handle with this knurled grip. I do like that it's got this cool kind of slick hidden WD-T tool in the handle. I think that's a neat little touch that I've never seen on another portafilter or with another espresso machine like this, so that's kind of cool. I do wish, however, the magnets that hold the cap of it into the portafilter handle were a little bit stronger. I have had some scenarios where I've been taking this in and out of the group head and I've loosened up the WD-T tool just because those magnets aren't super strong. The old style portafilter, which I have right here, this is the original sort of prototype design, was actually a thread-in WD-T tool, which I actually kind of like better, and I wish they would have stuck with that design, but the production version is going to have the magnets. And while I do like magnets, I just wish they were a little bit stronger in this scenario. Something else that's different in the production portafilter versus the original portafilter is that this is a solid one-piece design portafilter, and the new production version of the portafilter is a multi-piece design. This cap here on the bottom comes off. You can unthread this, and inside here under the cap, you've got a screen. And this does come with two interchangeable screens, a standard flow screen and what they call a fast flow screen. I've experimented with it a little bit and it's kind of fun to experiment with, but I just don't know how much I would really use this in a real world situation of traveling with this espresso maker or using it on a regular basis. So again, neat that they give you that option to sort of play around with it, but not something I'm, super care that much about. There is also an O-ring in here. Now, I have had some concerns with this O-ring, and so have some other people that have had this machine for a little bit and have been sort of testing it and had the prototype version as well with the one-piece portafilter. This O-ring right here has been a huge frustration. The original portafilter O-ring was a little bit too small and it was leaking. They've since made some changes and updated the size of this O-ring, and since then it's been fine. I haven't had any issues with it. The updated O-ring kit they also send me has an O-ring that goes around the outside here at the top, and that seems to help as well. I really liked the one-piece design portafilter that was more like a standard style portafilter. I understand that they wanted to go to something that gives you the option to play around with and experiment with these interchangeable screens, but again, I don't know how much of this I really care about versus having O-rings in here that could potentially cause a leak. And like I said, I did have issues with this leaking under pressure with the old style O-ring. Again, since they've updated the O-ring, I haven't had that issue, but it was a frustration while I was testing and setting up and gathering my thoughts for reviewing this product for you. It's just something I wanted to make sure that you're aware of when considering this machine, if it's something you're thinking about. There's always going to be the potential for this to leak, for this O-ring to wear out, and over time this could just become an issue. The other thing that I have a problem with this multi-piece design is from a cleanup perspective. Every time you pull a shot, unless you're going to be pulling multiple back-to-back shots of the same coffee in a short period of time, you have to take this apart every single time and clean this stuff really thoroughly, before you put it back together and use the machine again at a later date. With a one-piece design portafilter, you don't have to do that. You just have to knock your puck out, rinse it out with water, clean it, however you want to clean it, and you're good to go. You don't have to take this apart. It's just like a typical standard portafilter. This sort of design here where eventually this could lead to leaks or cause issues further down the line, and it increases sort of the, amount of time you have to go through and the faff you have to sort of go through to take this apart to clean it, to me, isn't worth it over the design of something like this. Something else that I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to this multi-piece portafilter design is this bottom cap basically here. You can see in the design of the cap, there's a lot of sections where there aren't holes drilled through, and I don't know if that was just, you know, a design choice to make this neat looking pattern on the bottom, or if there's some other reason that they did that. But I feel like these sections where there aren't holes drilled is actually going to potentially block the flow. Even though this screen is fully filled with holes all the way through, this is going to block some of those holes. I can say that with the, you know, the shots I've been getting from this, they have been tasty, so I don't think it's necessarily negatively impacting the coffee all that much, but it was just sort of an interesting design choice that I noticed that I wanted to make sure I made you aware of. When you're putting this back together after cleaning, or let's say you wanted to swap out to a different screen, you just want to make sure that this O-ring here that sits in this bottom groove of the portafilter is in there as evenly as you can get it. You want to then place your screen, whichever one you're choosing to use, on top of that O-ring, and then you take the cap and you thread this on here, and listen to that horrendous noise. And then you want to basically go around the inside here, make sure this O-ring is evenly seated on here as you're tightening this down. Once you've got the bottom cap tight and you're confident that the O-ring is seated evenly all the way around, you don't see any sections of it that are poking out or any gaps, you are ready to go ahead and dose out your coffee and fill up your water and pull a shot. When it comes to the capacity of the portafilter, it can hold 16 to 20 grams of coffee, and it can hold up to 80 milliliters of water in the brew chamber. So you've got some headroom there to be able to do a standard, you know, 1 to 2 style shot, or a 1 to 3 or 1 to 3.5, or, you know, anywhere in between there, whatever it is you're doing with your coffee, depending on the dose and the coffee and what it is you're trying to do with that specific shot. So you do have a little bit of working room when it comes to the, you know, the dose amount and the capacity of water that this can hold. Not sure if I mentioned it or not, but this is a 58 millimeter portafilter. So if you have something like a 58 millimeter blind shaker that you like to dose into, it will fit on the top here. There's no real need to use like dosing rings or funnels or anything like that, because this is so deep and your coffee is so far down already. It's basically acts as its own dosing ring. But if you want to use something like your blind shaker, if you're used to using something like that, then you totally can. One thing I have noticed, because this tamp fits so tightly and the tolerance is so close here, if you pull out too quickly, you have a chance of unseating the puck and pulling it up. So just after you tamp, just pull out really slowly, or even sort of twist as you're pulling this out to, you know, make sure you don't unseat that puck. So then after that, you're going to take your puck screen and thermal sleeve here and slide it down in here and just sort of press it along the top edge here of the coffee. And then we've got our water ready to go here. We're going to fill this up. I've got this set to full, you know, boil, 100°C or 212 degrees, just so it's as hot as possible, since we are going to lose some heat in the process here. I'm going to do a little like 3-bar pre-infusion here. Grind's a little off, a little too fine. Yeah, we're gonna need to adjust the grind and do that again. All right, so that was 18 in, 37 out. Much better. That's pretty tasty. Temperature's not bad. Little bit lower temperature than I'd want. The grind was better. I could probably still go even more coarse. Not a whole lot, but a little bit coarser. But overall, this is really good. It's really fun doing it with the CO2 because there's no sound really at all other than the sound of the shot and the liquid going into the cup. You know, there's no other sound that this makes. So it's really kind of a unique experience doing a shot of espresso using compressed air from a CO2 cartridge. But I'm gonna set up again. I'm gonna go a little bit coarser on the grind size and try to get this a little bit more dialed in. And I'm gonna switch over to the air pump so you can kind of see how that works. Do a little pre-infusion again. What's nice about the bike pump is when you have it set to whatever pressure you want to run, you can just turn it on and it'll stop itself when it gets to that pressure. And that's really tasty. That's a great shot. I would be more than happy to have this shot while traveling. I mean, this is good. I don't have really any complaints about this shot. I wish it was, maybe the temperature was a little higher. Probably could, you know, obviously have a little bit better extraction, but overall, from something like this that's designed to be portable and compact, it's a very tasty shot that I'm very happy with. So even though it's not without its flaws, I do think the Maespresso 58 is pretty cool. I could definitely see myself using this in a travel scenario, especially something like camping, and having the option to use the CO2 to be able to do espresso pretty silently and not disturb nature if you're camping, or not disturb your, you know, hotel room guests or your Airbnb mates or something like that, is a really cool option and feature to have. Although the air pump is nice that it's a one-time fee and you don't have to, you know, spend money on CO2 cartridges going forward if you wanted to go that route as well. So for a starting price of $2.99, I think this thing could be potentially pretty competitive. What are your thoughts on the Maespresso 58? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.